Capitalism or socialism, it's getting harder to tell when it comes to Donald Trump's America because the president keeps making moves that have the government's hand firmly involved in a number of business dealings. The most recent is Trump just cut a deal with Pfizer to lower prescription drug prices. Pfizer will then sell the discounted medications directly to Americans on Trump's forthcoming website. You guessed it, Trump RX. Now, Democrats have for years tried to curb out-of-control drug costs, but with each legislative push, Republicans have screamed the S word.
Obamacare is a placeholder for Bernie Care. Bernie Care is socialism full-born.
So far, prescription drug socialism is not working out too well.
Under what he wants to do, which will basically be socialized medicine.
At the end of the day, this is the only process left available to stop a march towards socialism.
Joining us at the table is CNN Global Economic Analyst Rana Foroohar. Rana, this has been, I think, a topic of discussion because there are so many ways in which Trump has been screaming socialism and communism, and yet he wants to manage this entire economy by himself.
Yeah.
Putting his hand in literally everything, offering tariffs and then discounts on the tariffs and then giving rebate checks to people and then taking shares in private companies and so on and so forth. How do you see this?
So I would say there's a lot of state capitalism going on here. And by that I mean, it's kind of what China does. It's capitalism. There are markets and people are certainly making profits, but you have the state coming into sectors when it's considered to be of strategic interest. You have the state, in some cases, censuring individual CEOs, disappearing CEOs in the case of China. Here, not that. But I think that in some ways what both Donald Trump and certain candidates, I will say, not candidates, but politicians on the left are doing is really responding to a populist sentiment. And I think that that's the connective tissue here. We are in a very populist moment. The rule books of both parties, I think, are being thrown out, and politicians are looking to do whatever resonates with the hot button topics in the population at the time.
I read last week that Trump was threatening to impose a huge tariff on foreign patented drugs, which many Americans depend on. And that it was supposed to go into effect October 1st. Did that happen?
So it's interesting. With the Trump RX plan, Pfizer, which would potentially be open to those tariffs, is supposedly getting an exemption in order to participate in this plan. So tariffs, and this is a great example of state capitalism, tariffs are being used as a tool, as a cudgel, as a sort of a carrot and a stick for companies as and when. And you never know when the rules are going to change. It could be one thing today, the next thing tomorrow. But this is about holding individual CEOs, individual companies, individual industries in some cases to heal.
Well, good luck to him if he puts a 100% tariff on Ozempic. We're all going to get fat again.
And everybody is operating. Everybody's operating at the whim of Donald Trump. But it was not even just a little more than a year ago when Kamala Harris was campaigning on combating price gouging at grocery prices. This is what Donald Trump said in response to that.
Comrade Kamala announced that she wants to institute socialist price controls. You saw that. Never worked before, never ever worked. This is communist, this is Marxist, this is fascist.
Look, if you're a Democrat, you're probably saying, you know what? Yeah, he should be negotiating drug prices. They've been asking for that for many, many years. And every time Republicans called it socialism. So now it's not socialism because Trump's doing it?
Well, forget about if you're a Democrat. If you're someone who needs these drugs, right? I think you're happy to hear this. Whether it's socialist, capitalist, these drug prices are out of control. A very close friend of the family called us the other day and said, the government just gives me, or my insurance gives me, he's diabetic, type 1 diabetic, the absolute perfect amount of insulin that I need. Can you help me get some more insulin? So if this is going to put this kid in a better position to get insulin for him at a lower price, I don't think anyone cares if it's socialist, capitalist. This is a very unique area. We're not talking about milk. We're not talking about grains.
Arthur, that literally the Democratic Party has been campaigning on this.
Yeah.
It's been decades. Honestly, decades. Medicaid and allowing Medicaid to negotiate drug prices, bringing down the price of insulin. In fact, they actually legislated some of that in 2022. And Mitch McConnell literally called it socialism.
So should we criticize someone who came around to with a good idea?
Just saying
I don't think so. I think it's great.
A little hypocritical.
I wish more people in government were like, you know what? I campaigned on this, but now that I'm thinking about it,
But that's not
actually
what,
a good
that's
idea.
not what they're saying. They're
But
just
that's what
pretending
Trump
like
said.
it never happened.
But let's also be clear about what Trump's doing. He's not setting a price control for a drug. He's using the stick.
Yes, he is.
He's using the stick,
No,
the
he's
tariff.
setting,
He's using the stick, the
here's
tariff.
why he's setting a price control.
He's not.
Because he is saying to Pfizer, you cannot sell drugs for more money in the United States than you do in Europe. Now, again,
He's
Democrats have been saying that for a long time.
He's saying
okay?
the government
But
is not gonna buy them.
Trump is saying that Pfizer cannot sell essentially drugs for more than they sell it for in Europe. How is that not a price control?
Let me finish. Trump is using the stick, the tariff, and on the opposite end, the carrot is that the government is the biggest purchaser, the biggest consumer of pharmaceuticals through all of the various government help plans. She's shaking her head. Yes, because I'm right.
Well,
he's using his position
okay,
as the largest consumer. That's different from,
Joe,
say, Zohran
Joe,
Mamdani, who
the whole point of what I'm trying to tell
Let
you
me finish.
is that Democrats literally, that was a
And I'm telling you
campaign
it's different.
slogan in 2016 and in 2020 to allow the government as the largest purchaser of drugs to use their leverage in the marketplace to negotiate those prices. Now, sure, Trump is doing that, but Trump and his allies used to call that a year ago today socialism.
Yeah, no, it's
you pointed out Kamala. I never got to finish my first point, so just let me finish. That is different from what Zohran Mamdani is saying about rent freezes, right? Mamdani is saying, I'm going to appoint a board in New York City to regulate the price of rent. That is socialism.
I didn't compare that to Mamdani. I don't think those are the same thing.
The truth of the matter is there's lots of different kinds of capitalism, there are actually lots of different kinds of socialism too. There's hard Soviet-style socialism where you don't have private property. Believe me, Donald Trump's not going to go for that. There's social democratic style governments that most of Europe has where there's a social safety net. Again, actually, it's ironic because we're having a budget shutdown in part because there's no compromise around pulling of benefits, healthcare benefits for poor people. You know, in Europe with democratic socialism, that's not something that they have to worry about. So I think the names and the definitions here are less important than the fact that guess what's going to cause a lot of inflation next year? Healthcare. And this is both parties, I think, are looking to this issue. We've just seen a big survey of major companies saying that they're expecting premiums to go up by 10%. Labor organizations are saying it's going to be more. This is populism. This is Donald Trump trying to get out ahead of that and hopefully say, look what I did, and then score some points.
The timing of this Pfizer presser coming at the same time that we're in a shutdown because of ACA benefits being cut is not coincidental.
Something tells me that this prescription drug thing is not going to counteract people seeing premium increases that are 50%, 75% more than they were paying before. I mean, this is thousands of dollars that people are going to be shelling out on a monthly basis.
Yeah, it's not only thousands of dollars that they're going to be shelling out on health care, but overall costs are going up, and the economy is not in a great place right now either. And so when Donald Trump has promised to bring down costs, there hasn't been one thing that he has done in his 9 months of being in office that will actually do that. People haven't felt it yet. And so I find it interesting that he wouldn't jump to the opportunity to work with Democrats to try to bring down healthcare costs, because at least he can come next November, he can say, listen, guys, I did this, and take a victory lap.
I will say, though, when you listen to Leader Thune over in the Senate, it sounds like they're aware that they're going to have to deal with this at some point.
100%.
Right? Because
it's going to be a huge issue by next
problem.
year. Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely. And one thing I will say, I do find kind of encouraging, although again, it's something that they wouldn't cop to around, say, the semiconductor industry. When you create a demand signal, when you use the purchasing power of government to harness a demand signal, Biden tried to do it quite a lot. Other Democrats have tried. That's a good thing. It does bring down prices, and it would be wonderful if Republicans would embrace that idea.